Well, good morning, Americans. How are you? This is the Boston Cowboy here, casting my razor light out from a beautiful New England. And today we have a Senate panel hearing on vaccines and vaccination and COVID and whatnot. And it's run by a Mr. Senator Johnson, who's from Wisconsin. Ronald Harold Johnson, born on April 8th, 1955. He is an American businessman and political from Wisconsin, serving as a senior United States Senator. And he's held that seat since 2011. He's a Republican, and he was first elected to the Senate in 2010, defeating the Democratic incumbent Russ Feingold, and then he defeated him again, and then he reclaimed it again in 2022. And so before he actually went into politics, he was a CEO of a plastics manufacturer in Oshkosh, Wisconsin, and he actually entered into the arena of politics to oppose the Affordable Care Act, Obamacare. And he credits the old Tea Party movement with his political ascension, though he does not personally identify with that movement. And he gained a good reputation for opposing government spending and seeking a balanced budget, which in my book is a thumbs up. And having stalled or voted against the budget proposals from both major parties for not offsetting spending. He's known for that. He's known for wanting to balance the books, which you can't argue with there for sure. And and then he also has criticized the Social Security program and has called for its partial privatization. Uh, He's promoted various political conspiracy theories, including the Biden Ukraine conspiracy theory, the connections between vaccines and autism, election denial, the Great Replacement conspiracy theory, the 9/11 conspiracy theory, and um, and he also advocates the use of alternative medicine and sponsors a right to try law to legalize the use of experimental medical treatments. So, with all that, I wonder if he's for like the legalization of drugs. You know, does he vote for the legalization of marijuana and the opiates, the boy, and does he believe in that sort of thing? If he believes in the right to try alternative medications and legalizing the use of experimental medical treatments, is that medical treatments only prescribed by big pharma, or is it a medical treatment that I can prescribe myself, so to speak? Uh, or does it have to be a doctor involved? I mean, if he's sponsoring a right to try, then I have a right to try any drug under the sun that I want. I do believe that's what that amounts to. But at any rate, that's the Mr. Senator Johnson from Wisconsin. And then sitting in the opposite chair, we have a Senator Blumenthal from Connecticut, Richard Blumenthal, born on February 13th, 1946. He he's been a politician for quite a while. Uh, Mainly the same about a time as the Mr. Johnson since the 2011. So they were going on about 15 years now. And he's also an attorney, and he's a senior U.S. senator from Connecticut, member of the Democratic Party. He has been a member since 2011. Blumenthal previously served as a U.S. Attorney for the District of Connecticut, as a member of the Connecticut General Assembly, and of the 23rd Connecticut Attorney General. So he's been an Attorney General in Connecticut, and he graduated from Harvard U, where he was the chair of the Harvard Crimson. He then studied for a year at Trinity College, Cambridge, before attending Yale Law School, where he was editor-in-chief of the Yale Law Journal. And you don't get those types of positions without having some connection, because I believe everybody there sort of wants that type of position, because your name becomes known amongst your class and underclassmen, and everybody knows who Mr. Blumenthal is. And then it makes you wonder, why go through Harvard and Yale and Trinity only to become a politician? You know what I mean? I get it. I get it. A lot of them are lawyers. A lot of them are CEOs. There's not very many blue collar, factory workers or fishermen or truck drivers or what have you that are serving on the U.S. Senate or Congress. Most of them come from money. Most of them come from education. And then once they get there, they never leave. It becomes a second career, so to speak. And at any rate, he did serve in the United States Marine Corps Reserve from 70 to 76. He attained the rank of sergeant while there. After he graduated Yale Law, he did pass the bar, and he was an admin assistant and law clerk for several Washington, D.C. figures. From 77 to 81, he worked in his own private law practice, and he was a volunteer counsel for the NAACP. And so, yeah, he's a pretty learned fella. And he was born into a Jewish family in Brooklyn, New York City, the son of a Janie and Martin Blumenthal. His daddy, Mr. Martin Blumenthal, at the age of 17, immigrated to the U.S. from Frankfurt, Germany. And Miss Janie was raised in Omaha, Nebraska, and she became a social worker. And his daddy, he had a career in financial services and became president of a commodities trading firm. And so that's a Mr. Blumenthal, which is sitting on the opposite chair. And they are both interviewing. And we're going to hear from the main star of the show, Mr. Robert Wallace Malone, who 1959 was born on October 20th. He's an American physician and biochemist. His early work focused on the mRNA technology and pharmaceuticals and drug repurposing. He is credited for the first successful transfection of designed mRNA packaged with a liposomal nanoparticle. Yeah, a liposomal nanoparticle, believe it or not. During COVID-19 pandemic, he did promote misinformation about the safety and efficacy of COVID-19 vaccine. So that's and this is the slippery slope. This is one of the gentlemen that invented the mRNA technology, wrote papers on it, and he knows his stuff. He knows his stuff without a doubt, right? He knows mRNA technology. He damn near was a part of the invention of it and the successful transfection of an mRNA packaged within a liposomal nanoparticle. So he knows what he's talking about. And then they go on to say, and I'm just reading off of Wikipedia, folks. They go on to that he promoted a misinformation about the safety and efficacy of the COVID-19 vaccine. So how can they say that it's a misinformation? Are they more learned than Mr. Malone here? Or Wikipedia? Like, what is the misinformation that he supposedly peddled in? That the vaccines weren't safe? That the vaccines weren't properly trialed? That the vaccines were rushed out and forced down our throats in the name of safety, supposedly, quote unquote. So, anyways, you see what I'm getting at. It's a huge, huge slippery slope. Very slippery, very slopey. And so we're going to listen to this fella, and he's going to talk about what he's going to talk about. And bear in mind, this is a Senate hearing on COVID-19, and they just heard from a panel of three, two physicians and one lawyer about the safety of COVID-19 and what they believe was studies that pointed to vaccines causing all types of problems, and for and against, for and against. So it's basically a debate. It's basically a debate moderated by Mr. Johnson and Mr. Blumenthal. And then this person here, Robert Malone, got dragged on into it. So that we're going to hear from him now. So let's hear what he's got to say, and we'll go from there. And bear in mind, I listened to this, and there is one thing that he says that really caught my attention. I mean, as soon as he said it, it stuck out like a sore thumb. And I saw this about 2 or 3 days ago now, and that's pretty much, I've been thinking about it quite a bit, and it caused me to come back to this video and look at it a few more times, and it still boggles my mind when I hear it. Let's see if you can pick it out, and maybe I'll speak on it after the video. But let's listen to what he got to say.
Okay, I'll dismiss the other panel.
Mr. Scott, I'd like to say hello. My name is
Hello.
Dr. Robert Malone. I
Nice to meet you.
invented mRNA vaccines. I know the answers to all those questions that you don't have.
Well, he's not here. So, close out this hearing? You want to do it? Okay,
Hey, I've been defamed twice.
okay,
Twice during this meeting.
okay, just hang on. I've got it, their committee rules. Hang on. Okay.
Civility.
Okay.
Ridiculous.
So we by rule, we have to allow Senator Blumenthal to come back here, okay? So before I do any of this, we have to give him that opportunity. Is there a time limit on this? Yeah, I know. Okay. So why don't you, again, this panel is dismissed. I'll sit here.
I congratulate Dr. Scott on his ability to read minds. Now, I've been trained as an expert witness, and I know that one of the things you cannot do is infer intent. Dr. Scott has done exactly that. He has misconstrued what I said about Rochelle Walensky and about Lena Wynn.
Yeah.
Malone.
This panel, you're dismissed. Thank you again for your testimony. And, you know, Dr. Scott, we might get another invitation letter here sometime in the future. Okay, thank you much.
Thank you, Senator Johnson.
I think Dr. Malone has been mentioned a couple times, and I think I've given him the opportunity to be sworn in and defend himself. So, Dr. Malone? Do you swear the testimony you give before the subcommittee will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes, sir.
I'll let you make your statement.
Various comments have been made about intent and meaning concerning, in particular, 3 tweets, or 3, they're not actually tweets. They're part of a weekly roundup of memes that my wife and I publish through our Substack, malone.news. We put out, over the last 4 years, thousands of essays. And we get a little bit of a break. We put them out 7 days a week, but we get a little bit of a break on Fridays and Sundays by doing a roundup of memes that other people have posted previously. They're sourced from many different places, and we typically cluster them around topic areas. Now, unfortunately, the morning, and just a little more context, of course, I speak here as a private party, even though I am appointed as a special government employee, serve at the discretion of the Secretary on the Advisory Committee on Immunization Practices for the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention. I have 30 years of experience in vaccine development. I have multiple fundamental patents and discoveries, of which 6 have to do with mRNA vaccines. They were all filed between 1990 and 1991 that have subsequently issued. Those are the foundational documents in RNA vaccination history. They go back to my original invention disclosure about the use of RNA as a drug at the Salk Institute, working in Inverma's lab in the molecular biology and virology laboratories of the Salk Institute, circa 1987. This predates the work of Carrico and Weissman by well over a decade. mRNA vaccines were reduced to practice at Vical in approximately 1991. Again, published. I hold over 100 papers, thousands and thousands of citations. I'm recognized internationally for my work. And as I say, it goes far beyond mRNA vaccines. I've been asked to testify at the World Health Organization twice. I played a key role in bringing forward the new Public Health Agency of Canada vaccine for Ebola and got it sold to the company Merck because I believed Merck was the most appropriate firm to further develop that vaccine, and I helped get hundreds of millions of dollars of federal funding to support the development of that Ebola vaccine at Merck, which was subsequently licensed. I am a vaccinologist. I am an immunologist. I am trained as a pathologist. I taught in medical school pathology for decades. But when I spoke about medical ethics early on in the COVID crisis, and the fact that coercion, compulsion, and enticement were not consistent with the norms of medical ethics, a discipline that I've been trained in extensively because I do clinical research, that led to my being asked to comment about the technology for RNA vaccination, having developed it. And that led to an incredible wave of hate and blacklisting and defamation. Now, among those were many articles from, say, the New York Times, the Washington Post, Atlantic Monthly, Business Insider, et cetera, et cetera. But the consequence of this was that my consulting business that had been operating for over 20 years was destroyed. It's not the first time that I've been a whistleblower and had my profession destroyed. Unlike some of these folks, as physicians that were unwilling to speak out, I have spoken out. I spoke out in particular about the death that occurred at UPenn, having to do with Jesse Gelsinger and the use of adenovirus vectored gene therapy. And when I did that, I destroyed my academic career, which is why I transitioned to working primarily with the US Army, particularly working in biodefense. I have many friends within the biodefense sector, have worked in there for years, have secret clearance from the Department of Defense, have been involved in virtually every major biodefense vaccine product that has been developed for the US military. But I destroyed, again, my consulting business by speaking out about what I was observing, particularly about the bioethics of the mandates, the coercion and enticement that occurred. And since then, I've had to find some way to make a living. And the way that I make a living as a licensed physician is to publish a Substack essay once a day, day after day after day, year after year after year. And as I said, every Friday and every Sunday, my wife and one of our associates pulls together memes from the prior week, assembles them around topic areas, and publishes them. Unfortunately, the morning, and your initial statements conflated this, the timeline. The morning of Friday, when this unfortunate event occurred at the CDC, we published one of the memes of many, including one that referenced you and your attacks on Janine Piero, accusing her of being a conspiracy theorist. But in that collection of memes, there was one that used a metaphor for random chance with severe outcomes. That metaphor was Russian roulette. Russian roulette is a metaphor. It is just like any form of roulette, only it has a very severe outcome. And that particular meme meant to make a point that when you have a random event with a severe outcome, it can appear statistically to be inconsequential, but in fact, it has a major impact. Hence, the chamber with one bullet in a revolver and the statement that 5 out of 6 would agree that Russian roulette is safe. It is a metaphor. It is not a violent indication. It had no indication of any weapon being pointed at anybody. Then on the following Sunday, after the event that occurred approximately 5 p.m. at the CDC, and I concur with you and have expressed as a member of the ACIP to CDC my deep regret about what transpired. But the following Sunday, 2 of the memes in the collection referenced Elizabeth Warren's statement that one doesn't need 20 rounds to be a hunter. If you need 20 rounds, you're not a good hunter. And that provoked a lot of response from Second Amendment supporters. And 2 of those responses we happened to collect and post together. One of them specifically referenced the senator and made a statement, the meme went, well, she's saying if you need 20 rounds to be a hunter, you're not a very good hunter. And the response was, if you need to disarm the population, then you're not a very good governor. The other one was the one that you've posted. I don't believe that's an automatic weapon, but I'm not a specialist. I don't actually own any guns except for a couple pellet guns that I used to kill rodents on my horse farm in Central Virginia, about 10 miles from the former home of James Madison that was cited earlier as a strong supporter of an armed populace and the Second Amendment. But I'm not a gun nut. I don't carry guns. The meme was referring to the senator's facetious statement, and it was poking fun back at her. And I think most would agree that humor is a very effective way to resolve tension and to discuss sensitive political topics. And our Friday Funnies and Sunday Strip are probably what is paying most of the bills now and allowing me to buy hay for my horses, because my audience really enjoys them. That's all they were, was meme collections, humor, by the way, free speech, and none of those were ones that we originated, by the way. And none of them had anything to do with inciting violence. You made a statement earlier that I have advocated violence against scientists. I object to that. I haven't advocated violence for anybody. And those memes do not advocate violence. The first one refers to basically a quirk in statistics, And the second one refers to a political statement from Senator Elizabeth Warren, which was intended on her part to be humorous, and the responses were also intended as humor. Thank you for allowing me to comment on your, let's say, and by the way, I think you also said on MSNBC that I was unqualified to serve on the ACIP. When I heard that, it was brought to my attention moments after you said it, I called up your office and I said, you know, the senator probably has never read my CV. Can I come in and talk to one of your staff at your office and go over this, thinking that there must be a misunderstanding? And I was given the number, the contact information, email, to set up a meeting with one of your staffers. And I would have been glad to drive up here from my farm in Central Virginia and meet with one of your staffers, go over my CV, and discuss your concerns. Unfortunately, they never got back to me. So for me, by the way, Senator Blumenthal, I used to be a registered Democrat. I grew up in the Central Coast of California. What I've observed during the Biden administration completely turned me around, like many people, like Sasha Stone, like many people in this audience. Regarding the statements that were made earlier by the young doctor, in which he cited a tweet that I put out. Actually, my wife reprimanded me. She thought that was a little too edgy, where I commented on Anthony Fauci seeking refuge in Siena, Italy. Now, how do I know about that? Because I go to Italy a lot, and I was approached by two whistleblowers, including one from the Policemen's Union that has been tracking Anthony Fauci's movements within Italy, and told me about a number of things that he has been doing and asked me to get that information back to the government. So I was aware of his movements in Italy, hence the comment. And regarding my comment about Lena Wen and the former director of the CDC, the former director has repeatedly lied to the American public. And then after resignation, or whatever we want to call it, has gone completely silent. Not be heard of, no testimony, no request for forgiveness, no acknowledgement of those lies. And more about those lies, I suspect, may come out soon. I speculate, because I'm not able to speak about what we know at the ACIP. Regarding Lena Wen, she made a series of statements about what is essentially violence that she believed should be done to the unvaccinated during COVID. I'd like Lena Wen to apologize. I'd like to know where Lena Wen is. I'd like to know what she's doing right now. Not because I want to cause her any violence or harm, but I'd like her to be held accountable. I'd like both of them to be asked, why did you say these things during this crucial time? These things that caused so much pain, that caused so much harm, that was so divisive, that politicized public health during the COVID crisis unnecessarily. Why did you say those things? Do you regret them now? Do you have any sense of what you did? That's why I'd like to know where they are. I'd like to have them stand up and acknowledge to the American public that they did wrong. Thank you for the opportunity to speak and to address these comments, and I'm glad to respond to any question you happen to want to ask Senator Blumenthal, recognizing that I am under oath.
Dr. Malone, Senator Blumenthal, you have any questions?
Just a couple of questions. I just want to make sure I have the facts right here. First of all, let me say I was unaware that you called my office. If you want to sit down, I'd be happy to do so.
And I'm glad to do so anytime. Thank you.
Second, you're a member of the Advisory Committee on Immunization Practices in the CDC, correct?
Correct, sir.
You were appointed by Secretary Kennedy after he fired all 17 of the previous members, correct?
Which I had no role in doing.
My view, tell me if I'm wrong, is the Advisory Committee on Immunization Practices, also known as ASAP, is a position of immense public trust.
That's your opinion. Personally, I think the ACIP is a federal FACA committee which should be immune from intimidation and which has had mission creep. That's my opinion. I think that this committee and the sense of importance attributed to this committee is grossly overplayed. The committee's
The committee
role
has
is
responsibility for deciding.
no, it doesn't. The committee has responsibilities for advising the director of the
let me just-
CDC only.
Deciding, in its view, what vaccines should be recommended, and then providing that advice to the secretary or to the CDC, correct?
That is one interpretation. I take a much narrower view of the charter of the ACIP, having had to
Well,
study it.
let me just say, I view this committee as one of public trust. I view it as seriously responsible for providing advice to the secretary, and that's the reason why he wanted you there. And I have no quarrel with your expressing your views as a matter of First Amendment rights, whether they were intended for humor or some other reason. But in a position of public trust, you have a responsibility to consider the practical effect of your words beyond just your personal consideration. And you may have a First Amendment right to say what you wish, and you do. I would defend that right. But as a matter of a public official in a position of public trust, the posts that you did had consequences.
In your mind.
I'm sorry?
In your mind, you made an
mind?
interpretation
Well,
about
let
that.
me
The
just
bulk
ask
of
you-
Americans recognize humor.
Your comment is that on the morning of August 8th, hours before a gunman fired 200 rounds at the CDC,
All true.
you put up a post with a gun, and we had it here.
Yes, it was posted. You shared it with us at the beginning of the meeting.
And that's a pretty threatening post, I would say.
If you believe that's threatening, then clearly you haven't watched Netflix. We are constantly bombarded by violent images. They are part of our culture. That is not a threatening post, in my
And
opinion.
unfortunately, we are also all too commonly experiencing gun violence in this country, which
And
does
that's a fascinating
which
point
not
because of the
condone-
linkage between gun violence and certain medications.
not condone any person in a position of public trust doing something that could in some way normalize it or make it okay. Let me just ask
So you infer that that normalizes gun violence, that post about random chance.
So we're going to have,
Let me just,
we're going to have a
Mr.
vote.
Chairman, I want
Let's
to
wrap
finish.
this up.
Because
Let's wrap
here,
this
I'll
up.
end it with
Wrap
this
up.
question.
Wrap it up.
48 hours after that gunman killed a police officer.
Interesting to see the media's reaction to our previous hearings. Except for a few highly biased attack pieces, the legacy media has largely ignored what I consider to be highly informative hearings. Perhaps they are taking advice from Senator Blumenthal, who hours before our last hearing, Voices of the Vaccine Injured held a press conference and was reported to have stated, quote, "I hope nothing comes of this hearing. I hope people don't pay attention because it isn't deserving of credibility and attention."
Well, now it seems to have gotten cut off, but we heard what we needed to hear, and it's interesting. Let's look at this whole situation here. Let's not think of it as a panel, a government panel. Let's not think of it as Democratic and Republican. Let's just look at the situation. And it's an interesting situation. what they're talking about is there was an FDA attack on the building. I believe it was in Georgia or something like that, Atlanta, Georgia, where a gunman went in and started firing at the FDA office, and a security guard was killed. And right before that post, hours before, the Mr. Malone, Dr. Malone, had posted uh, a meme about Russian roulette with a gun. And then after, I believe 48 hours or some 2 or 3 days afterwards, he posted a shot of what looked like a Gatling gun in response to Elizabeth Warren. And so that's what he was being grilled about. And one could argue that his post threw fuel onto the fire, so to speak. But like the good doctor said, that's just an opinion, because we don't know what was going through that gunman's head when he did do what he did. We don't know if he even saw these posts, and whether or not Mr. Blumenthal thinks it was not in good taste, and the timing was not appropriate, is regardless. Is regardless. And his robotic speech definitely was, he has a particular view, and he's going to stick with his view. And by golly, that's his right. And it's just interesting that the setup that the Mr. Johnson basically cut him off. It's interesting. I thought these senators and whatnot, they deserved all the courtesy and respect to get out their thoughts and their questions. And but then this Senator Johnson just cuts him right off, like basically says, "Wrap it up here, old man. Let's go. We time's a ticking." And so it's just interesting to see the dynamics at play in these panels. And these are panels that a lot of the people, American public, are watching. But if you go back to the beginning and look at the very beginning of the shot of Mr. Malone sitting at the table with the audience, it almost looked like a TV set. I mean, for all intents and purposes, it is a TV set, but it looked like a back TV set of Warner Brothers or something. The way the setup was, it's just a dog and pony show. I think a dog and pony show, but it's meant to really evoke some emotion. It's meant to want you to cast blame on somebody. And where can you put the blame? Can you put it on, if you voted for the president, can you put it on the president? Can you put it on the man that you voted for? Can you put it on the party that he's representing? Or do you do what they want you to do and demonize the other side, even though they're your neighbors and your fellow Americans, but they're your enemy. They're your enemy. Whatever party you're part of, that other side, they're your enemy. Don't you forget it. Anyway, that's just my opinion. And what he did say there at the end was very, very interesting in my book, about how they knew where Mr. Anthony Fauci was in Italy. How exactly did they know he was in Italy? How did they know that? Now that was an interesting, and it got me a thinking. It got me a thinking. It sure did. I mean, if you need to go back, rewind, and listen to that statement, he said that we knew Anthony Fauci was in Italy, but we don't know where them other people are. But we knew where Anthony. We have trackers on Anthony. I was contacted, and they're tracking Mr. Anthony and his movements. Isn't that interesting, folks? That's an interesting tidbit of information we just got there. So, anyways, that's what's going on today. And I hope you all enjoyed this little video, a little insight into the politics of an American panel, congressional senator panel. And, well, I thank you all for watching. You know, stay safe, stay free, and by golly, don't believe everything you see. The Boston Cowboy here. Adios.